Allahu, 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 Allah, Allah.
الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you guys doing? Good? Everybody's pumped? Today we're going to talk about the Azaan, inshallah, the Azaan and the Iqamah. So we're on alhamdulillah, we're on the 6th session of the series of, our study of the prayer. Sisters, you guys can come forward, sit, you guys can sit just behind the brothers here. Brother Amar, if you can just turn on the lights in the back, that way it'll be a little bit better. So today we talk about the Adhan and the Iqamah, inshallah. Inshallah we'll go till 9 o'clock. Yeah, I think that's a good time. And then whatever we don't cover, we'll cover inshallah next time. So last time there was a question, I think it was you, right? Regarding being able to pray your sunnah of Fajr after the Fard Salah, right? So I had a chance to look into it, and you can do it inshallah. There's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he was leading Salah one day, and he was leading Fajr, right? And so after he finished praying, and again I'm paraphrasing, this hadith is in Abu Dawud and At-Tirmidhi, Jami' At-Tirmidhi. And so after he made taslim, he saw that there was a man, he was praying still. And so he went and he stood in front of him, and he told, no, not in front of him, but he stood next to him, and he said, why are you praying? Why Fajr is only 2, it's not 4. And so the man, he hurried up his prayer, and he told him, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told him that this was my sunnah for Fajr, because I was not able to do it before I came to the masjid. And so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at this instant, he remained silent. And then so when it comes to the sunnah, we take the statements of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that which he says, that which he says to do, that which he says to abstain from, that which he physically does, and also that when he remains silent, the scholars take it as approval, inshallah. So that's fine. Now, as for what we are discussing today, is about Adhan. So let's get right into it. The definition, there's a linguistic definition of Adhan, and that means to pronounce or to announce or to proclaim, right? The legal definition of Adhan, it means it is an action of worship. So Adhan is an action of worship, of announcing the time of the obligatory prayer using phrases that have been narrated by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a very specific manner. Okay, this is the technical, legal definition of Adhan, meaning that not just any phrase can qualify as Adhan, it has to be the specific phrase that was approved by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the scholars, they have mentioned many benefits of the Adhan. One of them, it is proclaiming the sign of Islam. So when you go to a city and you hear the Adhan being proclaimed in a masjid, you know that it's a city full of Muslims, or it's a city full of Muslims. It attests to the testimony of faith. You say the shahadatain in the adhan, right? You inform the people of the start time of the prayer as well as its place, and it is a call to congregation. And this was mentioned as some of the wisdoms regarding the adhan as per Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. Now the adhan has many virtues. So those of us who are active in giving the adhan, who take the opportunity to give the adhan, who should teach our kids to give the adhan, the virtues of adhan are many. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, if people knew what reward there was in giving the adhan, and as well as the first row, they were to draw lots for it, they would draw lots for it. Right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also said that the muadhdhinun, they will have the tallest necks amongst the people, amongst mankind on the Day of Judgment. And so the scholars, they commented upon this hadith. You might have heard this hadith. We all have to stand on the day of resurrection. There's an accounting that's coming, and there's going to be a day of standing where the sun is perhaps going to be just a mile away, and people are going to be drowning in their sweat. Some people are going to be drowning up until their ankles, some people up until their knees, some people until their chest. And so the scholars, they mentioned regarding this hadith, they said that when on the final day, when the people are going to be sweating, the necks of the mu'adhinun, they're going to be high. So they're going to be safe from drowning. And some of the others, they mentioned that their necks are going to be so long because they're looking at how much reward they have, how much reward there is that is in store for them. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said that if it wasn't for the Khilafah, I would be a muadhin. Yani this goes to show you the virtue of the adhan. So now, when it comes to the ruling of the adhan, the majority of scholars, they mention that to give the adhan is sunnah mu'akkada. What is sunnah mu'akkada? What does that mean? We talked about some categories, right? We talked about I think that was me who covered it, lecture 3, where we talked about the legal fiqh categories.
Mu'akkada means never been left.
Correct. Yeah. So sunnah mu'akkada is part of something that is mustahab. So from a legal perspective, it is something that falls in the category of mustahab, and it is a specific sunnah that was never left by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning, it is super emphasized in the religion. It is super emphasized in the religion, and so it is sunnah mu'akkada for the men to perform it in the masajid for the 5 daily prayers and Jumu'ah. Okay, only. Then, so this is according to the majority of scholars, the Hanabila, as well as Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, they said that the adhan is fard kifaya. Fard kifaya, who can remind me what fard kifaya means? Correct. So they mentioned that, let's say we have a city, a muadhin at one masjid, if he makes the adhan, that it suffices the community. That's what that means. Yeah. Ibn Hazm rahimahullah, so he's the kind of the head of the Zahiri madhab, right? And he mentioned that it is a condition for the prayer. It is a condition for the prayer. So he took it as a condition for the prayer, right? So very highly emphasized. Now, with regards to our sisters, the ruling for women's congregation, yeah, the adhan and the iqamah are not obligatory upon women. The adhan and iqamah are not obligatory upon women. With regards to the different opinions of the different madahib, right, the Malikiyah and the Shafi'iyah, they mention that the iqamah is allowed for the women. However, they should say it silently. They should say it silently. The Ahnaf or the Hanafis, they said that the adhan is not allowed for the women and the iqamah is disliked. Disliked, we mentioned, was what? Makruh. Right? Makruh. The Hanbalis, they say that the iqamah is not legislated for the women at all. It is not legislated for the women at all. So, take it for what it is. Then we talk about the ruling of the individual. We talked about the congregation. We talked about the women congregation. Now we talk about the individual. Right? Imam Shafi'i as well as the Ahnaf. So, here's maybe, because you guys are learning fiqh, here's a nice point. Yes?
I just have a question about the purpose of the adhan.
Yeah.
Not the iqamah. I just want to know what is exactly the purpose.
So we mentioned the 4 points regarding the wisdom of the legislation of adhan. That was mentioned by Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. And he said, just to recap, he said that the adhan, the wisdom behind the adhan, 4 matters. It is proclaiming the sign of faith. It is attesting to the testimony of faith, meaning the shahada. It is informing the people of the start time of the prayer, as well as its place. And the last one he mentioned is it is a call to congregation. It is called to the jama'ah.
Just the reason why I'm asking that is if we are here in Canada, in Calgary.
Yes.
So the way we do the adhan is just between us. Like you have
Correct.
To hear it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Outside, you're not gonna hear it. So
correct. But it is, you know what, we do it to whichever, sometimes you do an action because we said that it is sunnah mu'akkada, right? So if we were to not make the adhan,
but the sunnah is something that
the sunnah is to make the adhan.
right? You follow it. You said that the sunnah of the Prophet
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, yes.
that you have to follow it.
Absolutely.
The way he did it.
Yes.
And back in the Prophet's time.
Yes.
So it has to be loud. So it has to be outside.
So you're saying, so what your point is, if I understand correctly, we should say it on the loudspeaker, like,
Yeah,
so it should be heard.
Doesn't like losing the sense, like the purpose, like the way we're doing it in these Western countries.
Right. Well, I mean, we live in a land which is not, not Islamic, obviously, and we have to live by the rules of the land, right? So if we start making adhan out loud, as was, the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people would, we have a hard enough time establishing masajid. The neighbors would complain, we would get shut down. So we have to follow there's noise regulations that we have to follow. That's what it comes down to. I understand your comment from like a spiritual perspective, right? But that sense of community, that sense of the call to the prayer you get when you go to a Muslim land, right? So I was just in Pakistan recently. Every time it's nice. It's nice to hear. So I completely understand your point. Yeah. I understand your point, absolutely. The solution to this is like 12 levels above my pay grade.
I just like the sunnah, the way we have to follow it, because I just had that debate last week with a friend.
Right.
So nowadays, how are we going to adopt the sunnah, or we going to
but
in order to?
Right, but you also have to. So we also have to follow the rule of the land, right? And I think that's
Above the,
correct.
above the sunnah.
Following the rule of the land is also a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It's in the Quran. So I mean, the scholars, and they look at this and then they weigh. I mean, I'm not the one who's made this ijtihad, right? Obviously, but the scholars, they look at this and then they obviously you act accordingly. So you have a fair point. You have a fair point. I don't know if we have a solution.
So you have to just make like risk assessment, which means that you can compromise your safety, your other benefits in terms of applying the Azaan. The same thing you apply the Azaan here. Okay.
Absolutely.
You call the Azaan. So just only it's even in our countries. In this country, it's everywhere. It's just a fiqh of priorities. You should prioritize what you are going to gain. Cost benefit analysis. This is how we live.
But this is also a point that, if we are at home and the time for the prayer has come in, maybe we make adhan in our home too, right? So maybe you're missing that external component. That's one way to teach your children.
It's a question that like all our like Muslim in Western countries, that's a debate right now, because the way we learn the Sunnah is the way we have to apply it accordingly.
Yes, but
now it's just like we're doing everything in our way now. We adopt in the world.
And you have to adapt to the time and situation that you live in, right? Obviously, there is, living in a non-Muslim land, there is a whole certain set of fiqh rulings for people who live in non-Muslim lands, right? Compared to somebody who lives in the land of the Muslims.
When I go back home, but I have the freedom. So, and I kind of like change a lot of things that I used to do there. I bring it here, I change it. And when I go there and I get used to do it, when I do it, some people are going to judge me. Oh, this is not the way, the right way. Say, you know what? Don't worry about it.
Right. Khalas. So we a very interesting point. Jazakallah khair. We talked about the ruling of the adhan. We talked about the ruling for the individual. This is where we were at. Yes.
Yes.
We're at the ruling of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah and the Ahnaf. So yeah, this is what I was saying when we were talking about fiqh. And we say that Imam al-Shafi'i said something, it doesn't necessarily mean that the whole Shafi'i madhab is also upon that ruling, if that makes sense. Or if Imam Abu Hanifa said something, then not necessarily all of the Ahnaf are upon that. Does that make sense? So the madhab is evolving, and sometimes it takes positions. I mean, predominantly it takes the positions of their heads. So Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad. But sometimes there are times when when the madhab will take a completely different ruling. So what was that example that Munib mentioned last time? Where the two students of Imam Abu Hanifa, they differed? In the timings of Salah. You mentioned it. Yes. Yeah.
The difference. Imam Abu Hanifa maintains that it is the, he maintained it was the whiteness
Correct.
that has to disappear, and the two students said it is the
Yeah.
the redness.
So when I say Imam Shafi'i said this, I don't necessarily mean that the Shafi'iyah say this. If that makes sense, yeah? So Imam Shafi'i, as well as the Ahnaf, they are upon the position that both the Adhan and the Iqamah are recommended, even for missed prayers. Even for missed prayers. This is the ruling for the individual. The Malikiyah, they mention that only the Iqamah is recommended. For missed prayers, even for missed prayers, only the Iqamah is done. The Hanabila, they say that both the Adhan and the Iqamah are fard kifaya, even for the one who has missed prayers. Now, we talk about some other issues. Yeah, so I'm kind of trying to go through this quickly. Yeah, some other issues. A person is recommended to give the Adhan and Iqamah even when traveling alone. So let's say you're traveling to another land, then you are supposed to even give the Adhan and Iqamah. Now what about recorded Adhans? Like, you know, a lot of us have, has those clocks, right? A lot of us have those clocks that make the Adhan. Does that suffice? What do you think?
Preferably should call Azaan by ourselves.
We should call Adhan by ourselves. Why should we call it by ourselves? Because it is? Because we said that the Adhan, the legal definition, it goes back to the legal definition, it is an act of worship. Right? Act of worship has to have some sort of intention behind it. The Adhan that is recorded doesn't have any intention behind it. It's just a pre-recorded thing, right? And to fulfill the sunnah as well as many other benefits. Now, the shurut of the Adhan, which are the preconditions for the Adhan. Number one is it's to be given after the start of the time for Salah. After the time for Salah, it has to be in the Arabic language. It has to be performed by a male Muslim. It has to be loud enough for people to hear, right? Or oneself for the Iqamah. So that means, obviously, the people in the masjid, we were just talking about this, right? To maintain the order of the statements. So the order of the statements have to be maintained. It can't be that you say, Hayyah al-falah before, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. So it has to be in a correct order. And it has to be performed by an individual in its entirety. Meaning that it cannot be divided up. So you can't, you can't just start Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and then somebody comes talks to you for 10 minutes, and then you start, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. So this is not allowed. It should have continuity. If it's a very small pause, not a problem, but it cannot be something that is very prolonged. Now we come to the words of the Adhan, and this is in the notes. This is something I've put in the notes. The Adhan of the Kufiyun. Yeah, this was the Adhan that was narrated by Abdullah ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu, as well as Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. And this is 15 phrases. Now there are other Adhans which are 17 phrases, other Adhans which are 19 phrases. This is the opinion of the majority. This is the opinion of the majority. We say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, Hayyah ala salah, Hayyah ala salah, Hayyah ala al-falah, Hayyah ala al-falah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. So now a common mistake that people do when they are making the Adhan is they say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Yeah, so this is wrong. It is Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. If you're going to connect it, then you should make sure that you have that it is Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, not Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Does that make sense? So it has to be you have to have, there's etiquettes of giving the Adhan, and sometimes when you say these things, it changes the meaning. It changes the meaning. Yeah, so same thing. قد قامت الصلاة, قد قامت الصلاة. Some people say قد قامت الصلاة. No, that's correct. What do they say? Somebody said something today in Jama'ah and it was completely wrong. It was completely wrong. Anyways, so if you notice somebody who's saying it wrong, then you should correct them. You should correct them, inshallah. Now the adhan for the Fajr Salah. The adhan for the Fajr Salah, Imam Malik, Imam al-Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad, they say that it should be 2 adhans. The adhan for Fajr, one is before the actual time of the prayer, informing the people of the time for prayer, that the Fajr is about to come in. And the other one is upon the start of time of Fajr. Yeah? And the first one is, and then Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he says that there should only be 1 adhan for Fajr. There should only be 1, not 2. Yeah, upon the start time of Fajr. So when you go to Pakistan, right, I think most masajid, they only do 1 adhan. And the Ahl Hadith masajid, I think they do 2, right? If I remember. No? They only do 1 as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone does 1.
No, the first one only is that mean to before the tahajjud or something. They put a gap. Like
Before the prayer. Yeah, correct. And the Ahl Hadith, they say if there are 2 muadhins in one locality, then one should call before the actual time and one for the actual time of prayer. So they also say 2, inshallah. Now in Fajr adhan, after the Hayyah al-Atayn, what are the Hayyah al-Atayn? Hayyah al-Salah, Hayyah al-Salah, Hayyah al-Falah, Hayyah al-Falah. Then you add, As-salatu khayrum min al-nawm. As-salatu khayrum min al-nawm. That prayer is better than sleep, prayer is better than sleep. Now again, there's a difference of opinion on this. The 4 Imams, as well as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he says that this should be added, As-salatu khayrum min al-nawm, for both adhans. For both the one before Fajr and the one at the time of Fajr. Some Imams from the Salaf, as well as Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, he said that this phrase should only be added in the first adhan only, not in the second one. But I think in our countries they say, they follow the opinion that you say it in both. I'm pretty sure. Now the etiquettes of the adhan. The etiquettes of the adhan. You should be standing whilst calling the adhan. You should be in a state of purity, meaning you should have wudu. You should be calling the adhan from an elevated area. You should be facing the qibla. You should turn the face right and left upon saying Hayya al-Atayn. There is a difference of opinion whether you say Hayya al-Salah, Hayya al-Salah, Hayya al-Falah, Hayya al-Falah, or Hayya al-Salah, Hayya al-Salah, Hayya al-Falah, Hayya al-Falah. Okay, there's a difference of opinion upon this.
nowadays, because of the mic, people.
Correct. If it's going to take away from your voice, but because you're going to turn your face, then perhaps you should not turn your face. Okay. This was the action of Bilal radiallahu anhu. He did it. Hayya ala salah to the left and Hayya ala falah to the right. Now insert the index fingers in the ears. Yeah, this is to elevate the voice. It should be delivered right at the beginning time of the prayer, right? You should raise your voice loudly and try to beautify it. I mean, it should not be elongated to a point where, it's getting ridiculous. Like, sometimes we go to Jummah and the muadhin is like, he's gone on for 5 minutes, right? That's maybe that shouldn't be done, I don't think. And then there's the other extreme where it's completely extremely fast, right? So nice, melodious, in a good pace. The words should be clear. Yes.
Yeah, just something to add, maybe you can touch upon it as well. Oftentimes people, make the adhan, and just to make it beautiful, all the tajweed is lost, right?
Correct.
Ashhadu anna Muhammad, instead of anna, right?
Yeah.
Just anna, and it's just very long.
And they make some mistakes. Correct. And actually, following the rules of tajweed was my next point. That you have to follow the rules of tajweed. Slowing down while giving the adhan, so in a nice way, not rushing it. So not one extreme, not the other extreme. It should be in a whatever the normal person would consider to be a normal pace, right? For the muadhin to call the iqamah as well. This is an etiquette of the adhan. So if somebody else is going to call the iqamah, they should seek permission from the one who made adhan, if that makes sense. So today we were praying Jummah. I was at Northwest Musalla today, and we almost forgot to make the iqamah before leading prayer. And I don't know if the person, and I should have mentioned it then, I didn't mention it, I forgot completely. But I don't think that the person who made the adhan and the person who made the iqamah were the same people. So from an etiquette perspective, the one who wants to make the iqamah should seek permission if they're different people. Ideally, it should be done by the first, by the same person. For the listeners to repeat with the mu'adhin. And we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this a little bit later on. It should not be interrupted by foreign speech. So while somebody is giving the adhan, they should not, have other speech as part of the adhan. It should be one continuous thing. People who are in the masjid should not leave after the adhan is called. Yeah, unless you have a need. Unless you have a need. But if there's no need that you have, and you can stay until the time, then it is better for you to stay until. But again, people have needs. Maybe sometimes you have to go to work, whatever reason, right? If you have a need, then that's fine. But if you don't have a need, it is preferred for you to stay in the masjid. Now the du'as for the adhan.
I think we should also add in the etiquettes of adhan, most of the time, once the adhan is being called, we start talking to each other. So we should be quiet, we should be listening to the azan.
Correct, yeah. So we'll talk about some of the du'as that you mentioned during the adhan, that while the adhan is being said, and the virtues of them. And if you would know the virtues of them, then you should not be talking, right? So we're just, that's where we're coming to. It is sunnah, meaning that you are rewarded for repeating exactly what the muadhin says, except for when he says the hayyalatain. Yeah? In response to which you say, so when the muadhin, he says, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala al-falah, Hayya ala al-falah, you say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Also, when Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah is being said, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever says upon hearing the muadhin, say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, his sins will be forgiven if he says this. He says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu raditu billahi rabba wa bi Muhammadin rasulah wa bil Islam dina. That I bear witness, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah, la sharika la, that there are no partners, in competition with him, wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu, that and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is the slave and he is the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Raditu billahi rabba, that I am pleased and I am content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as my Rabb, as my Lord. Wa bi Muhammadin Rasulah, and I am pleased with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam being my messenger. Wa bil Islam dina, and Islam as my religion, as my deen. Now, this is what you say during the adhan is being said. Yeah. Now, immediately after the adhan, what do you say? You say, Allahumma rabba hadihi ad-da'wati at-tamma wa salati al-qa'imah ati Muhammadin al-wasilata wal-fadila wa ba'athu maqaman mahmudan alladhi wa'adta. Yeah, that Allahumma rabba hadihi ad-da'wa, that, oh Allah, the Lord of this call. Hadihi ad-da'wa, this call, da'wa is a call. At-tamma, the perfect call or the complete call. Yeah, that tamma, perfect call, complete call. Wa salati al-qa'imah, and the prayer that is going to be established. Ati Muhammadin al-wasilata wal-fadila, grant Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam al-wasila and al-fadila, which are stations, yeah, which are stations in a praiseworthy station. That maqama mahmudan alladhi wa'atta, that you have promised to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, we come to the words of the Iqamah. The Iqamah, by unanimous agreement, meaning there is unanimous agreement among the scholars that the statements of the adhan, they should be repeated in the Iqamah, and then after saying the hayyalatain, you say قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ. Yeah. Now again, the wording of the Iqamah, this was again part of the hadith of Abdullah ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu, as well as Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. This is the 11 phrase version. There are other versions as well, and we'll talk about some of them. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah, qad qamati salatu, qad qamati salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Yeah, so the mistake that was made today, was, he said, قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, not قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةُ قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ. Anyways, just something to be aware of, right? We're all learning, everyone makes mistakes, but it's better to learn and then not repeat them, obviously. Now, Imam al-Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, right? They say that the 11-word Iqamah, the one that I just mentioned, is the Iqamah, as it should be. This is the most authentic. They're all authentic. This is the most authentic of the authentic, if that makes sense. Imam Malik, he says that every statement of the adhan once, plus قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ once. So, he says, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, Hayyah ala Salah, Hayyah ala Falah, Qad qamat as-Salah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. This is the opinion of Imam Malik. Then Imam Abu Hanifa has a 17-word Iqamah. And this is, the Iqamah should be exactly like the adhan, and repeating every statement, just like the adhan is, and you say Qad qamat as-Salah twice. Yeah. Now we come to our very last issue, and alhamdulillah I'm on time. Alhamdulillah I'm on time. So this is now, we're talking about standing up for the Imam. Now the Iqamah is, or let's say the adhan has been given, the people are waiting. You stand up for Salah when you see the Imam come. Again, there's many different opinions on this, but let's say the preferred opinion of this class, at least the preferred opinion of my teacher, that what he taught me, is that you stand up for Salah when you see the Imam come entering the prayer arena, if that makes sense. You should never stand up before the Imam. Yeah, so that's a good question. So now here we don't have an assigned Imam. What do you do? So what we do now, which is against etiquette, is someone will start giving Iqamah, and then the Imam will be decided. What we should do is the Imam should be appointed first. We should decide who is going to lead. The Imam goes up and he says Iqamat as-Salah. That please, say the Iqamah for Salah, and then we make the Iqamah. So the Imam should be appointed first when there is no Imam. Now, let's say the Imam is late, right? It is from the etiquette of the Salah for you to wait for the Imam, right? If an Imam is appointed, let's say we have an Imam that is hired for Masjid Maryam, and for some reason he is 2 minutes late. Then from etiquette, the etiquette in our religion is to wait for him, not to start again, it's a different story when there's no Imam, right? Anyone can be Imam. But when there is a hired Imam, then you should wait for the Imam. Yeah? That's just another extra point of benefit. And with that, I think that covers Adhan and Iqamah. Anything else you want to add? Amar bhai? Emphasis on the tajweed thing, yeah. Because you can really mess up the meaning of the word, right? If you don't say it properly. So, when we teach it to our kids, we teach it to ourselves, we should look at the words of the adhan. We should look at, where is there a shadda, where there is a kasra, where is there a fatha, right? Where is there a dhamma, right? Especially the dhammas are the ones that get, zir zabar pesh, right? We should be very cognizant of this, because we could be making a statement we don't realize, but it would make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very angry. Yeah? There is a hadith about this, that a person says something. Again, intention has to be part of it as well, right? But try your best. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see some effort, right? As long as you put in the effort. You make mistake, khalas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur Rahim. But that's not an excuse for not putting in the effort. So if you're not saying it properly, perhaps it's better to go home, look it up, and then and then get involved in it. So with that, we conclude today's session.
When Azaan is called, for example, you can also say the same wording, right? If I don't know the dua.
Yes, absolutely. You can say the same wording. But the hadith applies to the dua itself, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that all of his sins are going to be forgiven. And it's and that you're going to give the Allahumma rabba hadhihi dawati tama. That is the one that says whoever hears the adhan, Rasulullah he said, whoever hears the adhan and says the following, my intercession will be confirmed for him on the day of judgment.
That should not be the excuses. We must learn. That's the important.
Yeah. So, and that's part of the reason. So, those of you who would like a copy of the notes, let us know. If we don't have your email address, I don't think we sent these out. We didn't, right? Yeah, we can send it out today, inshallah. All the du'as are there. The ones that are authentic, the ones that are masnoon, the ones that we can apply. And when it comes to du'as, the more you can incorporate in your life that are from the du'as of Rasulullah ﷺ, that are from the habits of Rasulullah ﷺ, like for example, going to the washroom, right? You are going to be rewarded for it. So every act then becomes, just the act of going to the washroom becomes an act of that you are rewarded for, right? Like the du'as you're supposed to say in the morning and the evening, they're supposed to protect you from the influence of shaitan. They're supposed to protect you not from the shaitan, but also from other physical calamities that might come your way. One of the opinions, one of the wisdoms of making du'a and the rewards for it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will avert calamity from you, right? So, as much as we can learn from that which is from the sunnah, then that is best. When it comes to dua also, you have to keep in mind that the wording is not necessarily the end goal type of thing. Like there's some flexibility, because there's many different wordings that you will find that are also authentic, as long as it's authentic. Yeah? If that makes sense. Anything else? Good. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.